Welcome, everyone. I'm Shelley Emling, the editor of The Girlfriend from AARP. I'm also the moderator of the Girlfriend Book Club. And I'm so pleased to welcome all of you to our monthly live discussion. I just want to say that we're up to about 56,000 members of the Girlfriend Book Club, and I'm so pleased that we keep growing by literally hundreds of new members every single week. This month, the month of February, you guys chose the Quarry Girls as our monthly book club pick. And as always, you don't disappoint. Every time you choose a book, I love it. And I'm so pleased that you guys chose the Quarry Girls. So I just want to say welcome. We have the author with us tonight, Jess Lourey. She's an award-winning author of nonfiction, crime fiction, children's books, magical realism. She is quite the prolific author, which I didn't quite realize until I read the Quarry Girls. So Jess, we're so happy to welcome you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I am absolutely honored to be chosen this month.
Well, we're so happy because as I said, I love the book and we're so happy to have you. I just want to first ask, most everybody's read the book that's joining us tonight. The book is set in 1977 in Minnesota. And then I was doing some reading about you today and yesterday, and I read that as part of your research before writing the book that you watched some 1970s kind of scary horror movies, which I thought was kind of funny. So was that sort of your process a little bit before writing this book? Is that unusual for you or what?
So my last few books have been thrillers, and they've been set in the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s. And so to prepare to write those, I watch horror movies from the decade I'm writing about. Because first of all, you get to see the clothes, the cars, the food, the language, but you really get to see what people are afraid of, right? It's not necessarily zombies, but it's losing bodily autonomy, that sort of thing. So I was watching The Omen, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The
Oh, I
Exorcist.
love that. I just watched that the other night again for the
Which one did you just watch?
The one with Donald Sutherland, though.
Oh my God, it's one of my I have such a crush on him from that movie.
It's so good.
It's so good. It holds up. And Jeff Goldblum's in that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But do you take notes when you're watching it? Like when they have a certain sayings or phrasing, do you
I
like
do.
Yeah,
I've got like a little legal pad and I'm just like blood and gore and I'm taking my notes as I watch it. Yes.
That's amazing. Well, so in asking you how you prepared for this book, you did that. And then what else did you do to prepare for writing this sort of a book?
Well, part of it is, so St. Cloud, Minnesota is a real city in right dead center, central Minnesota. And I lived there in the 70s. So also I interviewed people and I found out what they remembered. A lot of the research, a lot of the geography is true. There are tunnels underground. There is that old factory connected to the old houses.
Did you know that though? When you were living there, did you know there were tunnels under there? Because that was kind of unique to read about that there actually are those tunnels.
There were always rumors because there were 53 houses in Pantown supposedly connected to the factory. There were always rumors, and I was always scared by it because the idea of your basement leads into like an underground world is terrifying. Yeah. And I remember that rumor when I started researching the Quarry Girls, but I did not have it confirmed that there really were tunnels until the book came out about mid-November.
Really?
My friend Christine's dad was like, I've been in those tunnels. We used to party in them.
That's so funny. Yeah. I mean, I did not know that till I started to do some research about you. And I thought, wow, those tunnels actually exist, which was kind of amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I also read that what I really loved about this is that, I mean, you had Beth as sort of a separate storyline, you know, apart from Heather and her friends as another storyline. And then I read that you found inspiration for Beth and her story from watching Mare of Easttown with Kate Winslet and Jean Smart, such a great series. I'm sure so many people have watched it. So what about that series? Did you not plan to have that Beth aspect of it until you watched Mare of Easttown, or how did that all come to be?
Yeah, so I had the complete first draft of the Quarry Girls, and there was no Beth in it, and I knew it was missing something. I liked a lot about it, but it did not have the driving force. And then everybody was talking about Mare of Easttown, like talking, and I thought it was about a mayor, like the person in charge of the city. I thought that kind of sounds boring, so I never watched it. But then I'm zooming through whatever it was on, and I saw, oh, it's Mayor, like the woman's name, and it was Kate Winslet and Jean Smart, and so I watched it all in one sitting, and I realized, I don't want to do any spoilers if anybody hasn't seen it, but there's a ticking time bomb in that show, and it's something I wanted to put in my
Right.
book, and then Beth was born.
Yeah. So I guess I should say that if for those that haven't seen it, if you could just say in 30 seconds or something, what is this book about, The Quarry Girls? What's the core of it?
Yeah, so the Quarry Girls takes place, like you said, in 1977, central Minnesota, and a girl goes missing, and she goes missing after two friends see something in the tunnel, and they start to it's their friend that's gone missing. So they start to search where she went, and they uncover some really dark secrets in the town, and more girls go missing, and they're afraid that they're going to be next.
So I always ask this. I mean, Heather is the main character. We've got Brenda and Maureen are her friends. There's, a lot of guys. Ed, there's a lot of male characters as well, the father, the mother. So was there any character that you found particularly difficult to write about or more challenging? Or was there a scene or a chapter that you thought, wow, this is tougher than the rest of it?
Yeah. That whole book was tough to write because it was inspired by three true crimes in St. Cloud in the
Oh,
70s.
okay.
It's when I was living in St. Cloud in the 70s, there were two and possibly three serial killers operating, and it's not a very big town. They've never caught the third, which is why we can't say there were three. And so I did research into those experiences to write this book. And so with every character, I was just feeling real people experienced this terror. Real people had to survive this. But that said, I have two favorite characters. Heather, she's the main character, so that's kind of a given. She's kind of nerdy. She's a drummer. She wants to fit in, but her friends have all grown up before she has.
But
And
she's smarter than everybody else.
you're right. But don't you remember that age where it seems like all your girlfriends have figured it out, but you
Right.
haven't?
Yeah.
Right? Like they're dating and they seem like they carry themselves differently. And I felt like I was a bag of thumbs until I was like 25. And so I poured a lot of that into Heather. But then also Cloudy. It's spelled
Yeah.
like Claude, but
I know,
my
but cloudy. Howdy, cloudy.
Howdy Cloudy, right? Because my great uncle is named Cloudy, but it's spelled
Yeah.
like Claude, and I've always loved that. And he's just a sweetheart. He's a good man. I wanted to make sure there was at least one in the book.
Yeah. He was a good man. That was great.
Yeah, yeah,
So was it difficult to write the dual kind of storylines between what was going on with Beth and her being captured in this pit and it's claustrophobic, and then
yeah.
Heather out riding bikes with her friends trying to figure out what's going on in the tunnels? And was that difficult to do the two storylines? I know Beth didn't come into play initially, but after
Yeah.
you brought her in, was it tough to write those two different storylines at the same time?
It was. I actually really struggled with it. I have a fantastic editor, Jessica Tribble-Wells, and she helped me to streamline it. And she also did some formatting with Beth's chapter. It's really subtle. Her chapter starts a little bit with a little bit lower, so some white space at top. And the idea is like she's separate from the story and
Yeah.
kind of underground a little bit. And then she
Right.
helped me decide how much to put in there and how much to keep out. And I fell in love with Beth. She was really hard to write because so much happens to her, and I didn't know how it was going to end for her until I got to the end. And so, no spoilers if somebody hasn't read it, but I did not know how it was going to end for her.
Hmm. So I should have probably started with this, but can you tell us a little bit about your background? You're such a prolific author. I mean, how did you get started writing? Did you know you wanted to be a writer when you were a kid? And you just said you
Yeah.
grew up in Minnesota, correct?
Grew up in Minnesota, lived here my whole life. My parents were big readers, so I was raised around books. But I tried to write my first novel in college, and it was awful. It was it was so bad that it's my thesis, and so it lives in the college library. I tried to steal it, is how bad it is, because I didn't want anybody else to read it. But I thought it was great, as everybody does with that first book. Tried to get a publisher. I got rejected 25 times.
Right.
Absolutely gave it up, and I don't know that I would have returned to it if tragedy hadn't struck. So trigger warning, I'm going to talk very briefly about suicide. My husband committed suicide on 9/11, and I
Oh,
was pregnant at the time, and my horrible thesis was years in the past. I was pregnant at the time. And I ended up in the hospital because of stress. And my son's fine. He's 20. He just moved home to go to college. But they were worried I was going to lose him. And my doctor said, you have to write. And I'm like, I tried. I'm not really good at it. And he said, no, you have journaling is fine, but you have to write. You have to get that stress out because if it goes in, your son's not gonna make it. And so I couldn't journal. It seemed too self-indulgent at a time when I just had no bearings. So I started
Right.
writing a mystery novel, and it was my very first published book. And it's rough. It's my first book. It's a rough book. It's called Mayday. Um, and it's got humor, it's got justice, and I found myself working through everything that I couldn't
Yeah.
work through otherwise. I ended up giving a TEDx talk about it because I think everybody can access that transformative power of writing.
Okay. So that Mayday, I really want
Mayday.
to read that now. So
It is a rough book. I'm going to tell you, it came out in 2006. I'd steal that one if I could, but it's it's out in the world. But it's my first book. I'm proud of it.
yeah.
I've learned with each book.
So I just have to, and this is stupid because I should know this after researching you, but I actually
Oh,
don't know how many books you've written. It was kind of, I know you're prolific and you've written
yeah.
across all genres. How many books in total have you written?
I actually
Or have
didn't
you
know
lost
either, but
track?
I just found out last week somebody made me a Wikipedia page and I counted and I've written 24 books.
My gosh, I mean, that's amazing. Well, I mean, I did read, I read also somewhere that you're, in recent years at least, you've been writing about 2 books a year. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
that is correct. Yeah, and I was teaching full time for 20 years. I retired August 2021 and to write full time, and so theoretically I have more time in my schedule, but I have found the less responsibilities I have, the less I get done.
Right.
It seems like if you have more time, you do more, but I haven't quite gotten my sea legs yet.
That's really interesting. So, so you okay, so you stopped teaching to devote yourself full time to writing. So, what is your writing process like now? Do you have set hours? Do you get up at certain time and write for 4 hours and then knock off for a few hours? I mean, writing
Yeah.
2 books a year is pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I think I would like it to be fewer books a year, but that's my contract right now. I am a very blue collar writer. I outline for about 3 weeks to a month, and
Okay,
my outlines are very basic, 1 or 2 sentences per scene. A book has about 80 scenes, just to make sure it lines up, just to make sure I'm going in every direction I want to go in. So
right.
I outline for 3 to 4 weeks, and then I write 2,000 words a day, 6 days a week until that first draft is done, and that takes 2 to 3 months.
That's amazing. Do you ever come up with an idea and then do what you just said for a week and then say, that's not going anywhere. I'm going to start with a different book. Has that
Yeah,
ever happened to you?
I have, but only temporarily. So I have 2 back burner books that are just books of my heart that I wanna write, but they're so important to me that every time I try to write them, I don't think I can do it, so I just outline for a little bit, and I've been chipping away at those for about 4 years now, so hopefully I'll get the courage one of these years.
But you do an outline first. You're a writer that does the outline first, and then you start
Yeah,
the
I
process.
do, I have to. I'm one of those people that when we had coloring books would color in dark in the outline, and then I'd color in light on the inside.
Yeah.
I just need that structure to feel safe enough to play. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing.
So with Quarry Girls, you knew what the ending was going to be when you started.
I did know how the book was gonna end when I started and when I finished the first draft, but then Beth got introduced,
Right.
and that was really unsettling for me because it was the first time I didn't know then any longer how it was gonna end. I had to write it to see.
Yeah. So I was
Mhm.
wondering when you're coming up, I don't know how you come up with all your different story ideas. I mean, you've written 20 something books, but I was thinking, I mean, are you in the middle of the Quarry Girls and one day you're out traveling somewhere and you think of a great idea? Do you kind of tuck that away then and think, okay, that's going to be my next book perhaps, but I'm going to keep working on Quarry Girls until it's over? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how your story ideas, your book ideas come to you. You know, if you're actually working on a book and then you suddenly have another idea, but you got to put it off for a while.
Well, actually, the Quarry Girls came to me when I was writing Unspeakable Things, and Unspeakable Things is the fictionalized story of the Jacob Wetterling abduction, which was very famous in the Midwest in the 80s and started in the small town I lived in. And to research that book, I listened to the podcast In the Dark. It's
Mm.
a fabulous podcast. That whole first season is about the Jacob Wetterling abduction. But on the maybe 8th or ninth episode, they talk about all these other crimes in Stearns County, which is where St. Cloud is, which is where the Quarry Girls is set. All
Yeah.
these other crimes that happen. So it started percolating. Like, I want to explore those some more.
And so I know you write across multiple genres, which is sort of unusual with authors. And I just know that from interviewing so many authors that usually, your publicist or your publisher says, stay in your lane,
Yeah.
just write,
Yes.
stick with what you know. But you successfully managed to write across genres. Is there a genre that you like the best, or do you keep switching it up, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah, so when story ideas come to me, I unless I have a contract, I follow the genre. And so my magical realism book, that idea came to me whole barrel, and I just wrote that one. Otherwise, it seems like I always want to be doing the one I'm not doing because it always seems so. I'm writing young adult right now. It seems like it'd be much easier to write crime fiction.
Yeah.
And then I'll write crime fiction. I'll be like, I really liked young adult. I want to go back to that.
So when you think of the Quarry Girls, if somebody is watching this and they love you, they love the Quarry Girls, is there another book that you've written in the past that's sort of similar to that they might pick up to read next from you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Litany, it's Litany, pronounced litany, is probably the closest in structure, but Bloodline and Unspeakable Things are pretty close too. And that all four of them are inspired by true crimes.
Okay. So do you listen to true crime podcasts and watch true crime documentaries and TV shows? Are you kind of obsessed with crimes or
I'm
no?
I'm surprisingly not. All my friends are. My daughter listens to them all the time and recommends them to me, but I like to focus when I'm not writing dark stuff, I like to focus on really bright, sunny rom-com things.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
Okay.
I don't too much watch the dark stuff.
Well, I know a common thread, it seems like, through all of your books, and I've read this as well, is secrets, the idea of
Mhm.
secrets. So why is that kind of something you dwell on whenever, not dwell on, but you highlight in each of your books, that idea of having a secret?
Yeah, well, back to your question about genre switching, my agent doesn't love it, and I was talking to a publicist who's not my publicist at a conference, and I said, my agent would like me to write in one genre, but I can't. Like, a story calls to me, and I need to follow it. And she said, "Well, let's brand you. We're having a couple beers. We're, I think, in Muncie, Indiana." She said, "Let's brand you." And I'm like, "Okay." And she said, "What's something that's in every one of your books?" And I said, "Secrets." And she's like, "There's your brand. Jess Lourey writes about secrets." And I think it's because uh, I grew up in a small town and there were so many secrets in my house. We were a very German stoic family. There were so
I'm
many
German as
secrets in my
well.
yeah, so and
Yeah.
then in my small town there's secrets too because everybody sort of knows everybody's business, but nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors and certainly nobody tells the kids what's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's just sort of baked into me, this idea of secrets and telling them. I love telling secrets.
I
Not
think that
not
was,
not my friends' secrets, just just gonna put that
not
out
to
there.
tell any friends.
No, I'm not, no.
But I thought that was so, I love that about the book with Heather, with the sheriff, this authority figure. And
Yeah,
then I don't want to give too much away, but another authority figure, has a secret that she finds out about. And it's really interesting when you're a kid like that. Was she
yeah.
14 in the book? I can't
Yep,
remember. 14?
yep.
Yeah. And you're looking up to these people. They're a pillar of the community, but they're hiding something. And you find out as a young girl. And what power do you have, really? What can you do?
Right.
I mean, I just found that whole thing so fascinating. And also just the terror of going down in those tunnels and being able to open anybody's door. It was just incredible.
Right? Yeah, and yeah, that still I get chills when I think about it because it's real. You can go into those tunnels. A lot of people have boarded up their doors, but you can go through some of them. But I also really did wanna explore that powerlessness of being a
Right.
teenage girl in the 70s, right? Where they have a party line so everybody can hear your phone calls. There's no
Right.
internet, there's no cell phones. And I also wanted to explore how women come together. It's been the source of some of my greatest support has been my female friends whose secrets I will not tell. And so I just really wanted to explore in the book how when everybody else fails you, it might be messy, it might not be how you expected, but your women will show up.
Right. And I love the way she protected her sister, Junie.
Yeah,
And, and I even love the mother coming into it when she did, and she was sometimes there, sometimes not,
yeah,
but also important as well. But those
yeah.
characters to me were so rich, every single one of them.
Good,
It was amazing.
good. Thank
And
you.
yeah. So when you were writing this, or when you typically write a book, do you bounce it off your best friends, or how many people read the book to give you feedback, if any at all?
Yeah, so I bounce ideas off my editor, Jessica, and she's fantastic. She's just such a good idea person, and
Yeah.
she actually has dreams. So I'll talk to her about an idea, and then she'll go to sleep, and her subconscious works on it, and then
Mm.
she'll get back to me with an even better, shinier version of the idea. So she helps me brainstorm, and then I write the whole thing, and then I edit and rewrite the whole thing, and then I hire an editor, and she's worked with me on all 24 books,
Oh my gosh.
and yeah, she's a freelance editor out in Oregon, and I only met her because Mayday, my very first book, got rejected 423 times
Oh
before
my gosh. You're kidding.
before it got an agent, and one of the rejections very kindly said, "This book has good bones, but you need a freelance editor. Here's someone I recommend." And so
Wow.
I've worked with that editor every book since then. She's kind of humorless, and she doesn't waste any time saying nice things, but she's so good at character development. She helped me bring these characters to life in The Quarry Girls and in all of my books. And so
Wow.
she edits, and then my agent edits, and then I send it to my publisher, and that's 3 rounds of developmental editing, 3
Yeah.
rounds of copy editing, and 2 rounds of proofreading. So by then, everybody's seen it.
That's amazing. What do your friends and family think about your career? I mean, it's just kind of skyrocketed. Did they, when you wrote
Yeah,
Mayday, it was rejected 400 something times, did they think,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, she's writing books, whatever. But now look at you. I mean, are they just blown away by your success?
I'm so lucky that I've only been supported, at least to my face. That's how we do it in Minnesota. We're nice to your we're nice to your face. But I've only been supported. So everybody, I don't know if they expected my career to go this well, but everybody
Yeah,
was really happy I was writing and let
yeah,
me know. And so I just kept gradually building over the 2 decades, the career.
that's amazing. So what everybody's going to want to know, what are you working on next? What can we expect from you next?
I'm working
Probably
on
something really quickly, right?
Yeah, right? I'm working on a novel featuring 2 BCA agents. It's a Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. It's a real agency in Minnesota, and they have a cold case division. And
Mm,
so it's 2 agents solving a cold case that intersects with a hot case in 2023 Minnesota.
okay. And when will that be
Yeah,
out? Any
that
idea?
one is that one will be out probably 2024, but the first in that series is coming out in no wait, September, this September.
Okay, great. So the next thing we could get is in September. Okay.
Yes.
So what authors inspire you? And are there any books from the last year that you've read that you could recommend to the group that just kind of
Yeah.
blew you away?
There are 2 books that blew me out of the water, in 2022. The first is the one you guys chose for next month, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I can still taste those words. That book is so good. I will reread it. And the second one is if you like crime fiction, it is called Hide, like hide and seek, and
Yeah.
it's by Tracy Clark. She's a Chicago mystery author. It's a police procedural, which is not usually what I like to read. It is so immersive. Her characters are so well drawn, and it's so well plotted that it's one of the best books I read last year.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Mhm.
So just returning to 1977 again, did you run that book, the book by any of our friends that you grew up with that would have known maybe that era or something to say, did I get this right? Was the phrasing right? The fashion or just anything. Did you run it by like friends as well?
I sent out a newsletter to my newsletter followers, and I said, "Here's what I need, folks. Anybody who lived in St. Cloud in the 70s, any food, any stores, any roller rinks, any jewelry, any fashion, anything you've got." And I got 12 single-spaced pages when it was all together,
Right.
things that I didn't remember, like this one store where you could have free samples, or just all this great detail. So I didn't
Yeah.
run it by them before it was published, but I thanked them because I used most of that.
No, I love the way she was working at the supermarket, and you could just
Yeah.
imagine everybody's going in there in the air conditioning, and they're having a hot dog to get out
Yeah.
of the heat, and even the fair, and they're like playing.
Yeah.
She's playing the drums. I mean, the whole thing. You could really visualize it.
Oh,
So
good. Good. That's what I wanted because I felt like I went there when I was writing it, and I wanted readers to go there when they read it.
yeah, so good. What else? Oh, yeah, I wanted to finally, I always ask this of everybody. I mean, I know you've got a busy life, you got a lot going on. Somehow I think you foster kittens in the midst of all this somehow too.
Yes, I have a pregnant mom right now.
Tell us how many pets you have, because somebody asked you that. It seemed like you had a lot of pets.
I have absolutely no pets. I just
Oh,
foster dogs and cats. And I just 2 days ago got a pregnant foster mom. She's due any day now. She's the prettiest cat I've ever seen in my life. She's gorgeous.
oh. Do you have
Yeah.
a hard time like figuring out who to dedicate your books to at this stage?
Yes, I do. That's such a great question. I totally do. If you have any ideas, let me know.
I always wonder when you're on like 20 something, you're kind of out of people, right? I mean, who else?
Thanks to the guy who shovels my driveway, I would like to dedicate. Actually, I would with this snowstorm. I might dedicate the next one to him.
Yeah, you're in the middle of a snowstorm. Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally, I always ask, what do you like to do for fun with your girlfriends? Because the girlfriend from AARP, it's all about female friendship and the power of female friendship, especially as you grow
Yeah.
older. So I always like to ask every author, what do you do for fun when you're not writing and reading and rewriting and proofreading and everything that you do? What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, my female friendships are the richest source of love in my life, and so it's a long list, but my favorite is I have a friend who, for my 50th birthday 3 years ago, gave me a book with 50 states in it, so every year we visit a state and we spend a week there. So this year we're
Really?
going to Pennsylvania, last year was Vermont, but there's not a week that goes by where I don't do something with one of my I'm very blessed when it comes to friends.
That's great. Are they writers, or are any of them writers, or
A
or
a few of them are writers, most of them are from my teaching years, so most of them are teachers.
Oh, you used to
Yeah.
teach creative writing. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, 20 years, yeah.
Wow. How was it to give that up and devote yourself to writing books full time?
I did not mind giving up the grading,
Yeah,
but I did mind giving up the student interaction, so I do still lead writing retreats because I really miss just that give and take that you get with
right.
students. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually, and I forgot. But you do run women's writing retreats,
I
correct? Yeah.
do, yeah, usually about 2 a year. It's a labor of love. This year I'm going to Italy and Colorado, but
Right.
yeah, I absolutely love it. See, it's women who are at any stage of the writing process. Maybe they're just curious about the writing process. We go somewhere beautiful. I open up my tool chest and share what I know, and we just hang
Yeah.
out. It's fantastic.
That's great. So
Yeah.
finally, I mean, just again, this is the Quarry Girls. The author is Jess Lourey. If you haven't read it, I think most everybody in the book club has. Read it. I read it over the course of probably 4 days, I guess, and I was busy, but it was a beautiful read, a fast
Thank
read.
you.
I really related to it, especially since it's set in the 1970s. So everybody grab a copy of the Quarry Girls. Do you ever go back to your books? Would you ever see like a sequel to like following Heather later in life or something like that? I'm just curious.
With the Quarry Girls and Unspeakable Things are the 2 books that I've thought about that with because I fell in love with the characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jess. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And for everybody that's watching in the Girlfriend Book Club, please stay on the Girlfriend Book Club Facebook page because I'm going to be posting about 6 conversation starters so you guys can say what you loved most about the book. So, Jess, you might want to, I know you're a member of the book club, so you might want to check that out. So,
Yeah.
I'll be posting those in a second. So, thank you so much. Good luck. And I can't wait to read your next book. And I just appreciate your time so much.
Oh, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Good night, everybody.